Hi there, I am Kelly Smith, and I am a behavior analyst. I passed my boards in 2018, and so I have become a board certified behavior analyst. Prior to that, I taught elementary school for 16 years. I've always had a passion to teach, and that passion never died. It continues to be um, something that I love to do, and most recently, I have found extreme motivation in empowering families and teachers to take on challenging behaviors with confidence. Part of my job is working with students with pretty significant challenging behaviors, and I'm constantly trying to learn and understand the functions behind their behavior. I am currently taking a special ed class, and because I am getting my license in special education as well, and I ran across this book. My instructor has required us to read this book. It's called Lost and Found by Ross W. Greene. He has a PhD, and it's Lost and Found, Helping Behaviorally Challenging Students. And while you're at it, all the others. I literally started this book today, and I am so inspired by this book that I have this deep desire to share it with you. I work with several districts currently, and I run into the issues of the challenges of working with children with disabilities, specifically the ones that engage in pretty significant maladaptive behaviors. And I know that it's extremely exhausting, but some of the points in the first couple pages, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to share this with others. I need parents to hear this. I need educators to hear this. I need kids to hear this, that they are not bad. When you engage in a challenging behavior, that doesn't mean that you personally are bad. So just a little background, this book is about CPS model, which is the collaborative and proactive solutions. So this whole book talks about the CPS model. I had never heard of this model before, and so because it's been a requirement for my class, that was the first time I heard about it. Some aha moments in the introduction that I'm hoping that will hook you. And I'm hoping to disseminate some of this information in a series of videos. Doesn't go anywhere, doesn't go anywhere. If it helps one parent, one caseworker, one educator, then it's worth it. It's worth this few minutes of my time to disseminate this very important information. So one of the things that I underlined immediately was this line here. The de-emphasis on social and emotional learning in many school systems has made it a lot harder to respond humanely in response to kids whose behaviors is making everything else a lot more difficult. There's no time for humanity. What? We're talking about parents too. Parents of behaviorally challenging kids know a thing or two about feeling ostracized. They know they're blamed for their child's challenging behaviors despite the fact that they have other children who are well behaved. They don't want to be defensive, but feeling blamed doesn't make that any easier. They want to trust that their child is being well treated at school, and there are many signs to that contrary. Whatever the school is doing isn't working. Their child is still on the receiving end of countless counseling sessions, detention, suspensions, and worse, but the parents feel powerless to do anything about it. So as a parent, if you are feeling this way, there's help. There's help, and there's strategies out there for educators to come around the table and to sit down with your child and help them. Speaking of help, I thought this was really, really, really good stuff too. Talking about the word help, and so Dr. Greene goes into, talking about the word help and helper. So it says, let's think briefly about the word helper, because that's the most important role caregivers can play in the life of a behaviorally challenged student. Of course, educators are in one of the helping professions, and so are parents, obviously. Mental health professionals, coaches, medical doctors, and so forth. I'm in that profession as well as a behavior analyst. And there are 2 criteria for being an effective helper. One, he says, is helpers help. No kidding, right? Obvious. But listen to this. In other words, helpers abide by the Hippocratic Oath, which goes something like this: don't make it worse. And then this was really eye-opening, and this is something we stress in our field, in the ABA field. Helpers have thick skin. In other words, helpers don't take things personally. While helpers are entitled to their feelings, helpers bend over backward to ensure that these feelings do not interfere with helping. So I think about my own situation and in my profession. Children get mad, they get angry, and they don't know how to handle that. And they may call you names, they may hit you, they may bite you, they may, kick you, they may threaten you, they may, they may threaten your family. And of course, it's hard not to take that personally, but I constantly have to remind myself, this is not about me. This is not, they're not doing this towards me. This is just a lack of a skill or a lack of a way to communicate. They have something that their communication is, they cannot express how they're truly feeling. And so that is so important, to be a helper and to be empathetic and to not take it personally, because they don't mean this. So like I said, I would really like to dive into this book more, and I'll put the name of the book so you can read it as well. But just so many powerful things in the first few pages of this book. I loved this. Listen to this. Challenging kids are challenging because they're lacking the skills to not be challenging. And so there's a lot of myth behind lack of motivation, not wanting to do it because they're manipulative, or they're manipulating the situation. And this book goes into that, and we can go into it as well. But really, it comes down to a deficit in a skill. Clear. They just haven't learned the skill to do something that an adult is asking them to do. And out of frustration comes the challenging behaviors. So it says, but for now, it's important to note that the emphasis on lagging skills, not lagging motivation. That's an important distinction, because generally speaking, strategies aimed at improvising motivation do not improve lagging skills. You can motivate, and establish that motivation, but if they simply don't have the skill to do what you're asking them to do, the motivation doesn't mean anything. And that was an aha moment to me, because I work with a lot of kids, and I can establish motivation, and I feel like I do go out of the box thinking of how can I establish that motivation. But when it comes down to it, does that child have the skill that you're asking them to do? Or is there a deficit or a barrier that is impeding that child from learning? And so that is what this book is all about. And so I look forward to, diving into more of these concepts. And I mean, I'm hoping that this gives light and gives power back to our educators who feel helpless in situations where there's, a lot of challenging behaviors going on in their classroom and they just don't know what to do. I hope it gives power back to the administrators who, they're trying desperately to figure out how can I help these kids, and I hope it gives empowerment back to the parents to advocate for their child, that maybe, just maybe, what the current systems or interventions that are being implemented with their child maybe, or more than likely it's not working, and that doesn't mean it's the end of the story. It just means that possibly we have to think differently, and that's what this book does. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to sharing more about this book.